संस्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। पवित्रं चरितं यस्याः पवित्रं जीवनं तथा पवित्रतास्वरूपिणी तस्यै कुर्मो नमो नमः। नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। ओम सर्वमंगलमांगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। So we are into the last chapter of the Karma Yoga according to our series, that's according to Swami Vivekananda's lecture series, into freedom. It's quite some time that we have discussed this Karma Yoga. Hope you remembered what he had discussed in the previous classes. I should hope, otherwise I cannot speak today. So hope everybody remembers, at least majority. So in this chapter, for first 3 to 4 pages, Swamiji takes recourse to Vedanta. Then he comes to Karma Yoga. Though this is the chapter on Karma Yoga, that too with the title of freedom, Swamiji gives a basics. If you have read a bit of Vedanta, you can understand here. Swamiji takes the help of Vedanta to explain the world. Then comes to the idea of freedom, then the path to freedom. You have to understand the word, then way out of this word through which you attain freedom. So that's the way Swamiji expands this idea. So to give introduction, here Swamiji says, in the first 2 pages we have discussed to give a summary of what he had discussed, I just briefly discuss here. Swamiji began with the idea, what do you mean by karma? It means, one of the meanings of karma is also law of causation. What do you mean by this law of causation? If you have done any karma, you cannot resist it from bearing fruit of the particular karma. And also it implies cause and effect theory. As I had explained it to you earlier, the present karma or the work is the effect of previous cause. This present karma becomes the cause for future effect. So in this way it is sprinkled. Hence he brings the law of causation is also in one way produces its effect. So Swamiji brings the idea by the word law, niyama, ritam, law. What do you mean by law? Law is meant the tendency of a series to repeat itself. A series to repeat itself. A seed into a plant, this is sunrise, sunset, etc. It's a tendency to repeat itself. To explain that, he brought in the idea of vyapti, invariable concomitance. I had explained what's the meaning of vyapti. I don't want to go into those details. Now, when he explains this, the idea of law, vyapti, etc., if you see this universe, it is the mind which grasps the law. It is the mind which grasps the idea of the law. So actually speaking, the law resides in the mind. He explained law of causation, then came to the idea of law, explained it through the idea of vyapti. Then he said, where does law exist? It's in the mind. Now, Swamiji says, this law is universal. Before explaining universal, he will try to explain the universe. What do you mean or understand by the word universe? That which is characterized or limited by desha, kala, nimitta, time, space and causation, we call this universe. Which is limited? The infinite existence seen through time, space, causation, or Brahman seen through time, space, causation, or the pure existence limited by space, time and causation, we call universe, Jagat. So, whatever law, you say, Swamiji said law, it's perceived by whom or perceived by what? It is perceived by the mind. So, that which is conditioned by the mind, we called universe. Unconditioned mind, conditioned by the mind is freedom. It should not be conditioned by the mind. So, this time, space, causation, everything exists in the mind. So, if you consider a pure existence, to give an intuitive answer or a pointer to understand this pure existence. Suppose, let us say, we always use the word, so many times we use the word knowledge, is it not? So many times we use the word knowledge, gnana. When we say gnana, gnanam in Sanskrit, gnanam, knowledge in English. Knowledge of a mic, knowledge of man, knowledge of the world, knowledge of the universe, knowledge of X, Y, Z, so many subjects. To understand, we need knowledge of respective subjects. Removing all the knowledge of, taking the commonality in all these things is the pure knowledge. We are not speaking knowledge of science. Take out the two words of science. Meditate on only the word knowledge, gnanam, which is pure knowledge without referring to any objectivity, is called pure existence also. How to feel it intuitively? Let us say, let us all close our eyes. I am not instructing you, just to give a pointer. Let us close our eyes, sit for a few minutes. If we close our eyes and feel, what do we feel? The very first idea, forget about your family, Vagarane, etc. and forget that you are hearing a lecture also. Sit quietly, don't think, try to, not to think anything. What is the pointer that you get? First feeling that I get is, I exist. I am. What is this I am? It is awareness, the pure awareness. Just taking the pointer that I exist, it is pointing to something, as Ramana Maharshi says. Understand who you are. What do you mean by that? You try to find the source of I. What is the meaning? Try to find the source of I. And I sit, whenever I am aware in the Jagrata Avastha, even in dream, I never feel that I don't exist. In all my activities, the commonality in all my actions all through the day is that I exist. Aham asmi iti. I exist. So, if you try to understand what is that, it is nothing but the pure awareness. When you try to focus on what do we understand by that pure awareness, which gives, that awareness gives existence or value to all the activities that I do. Thinking, feeling, sleep, touching, everything. For all our emotions, for all our bhakti, for all our activities like dhyanam, gnanam, adhyayanam, swadhyayanam, sarvam, what is the basis? I exist. That pure awareness. When you think of that pure awareness, can you add any religion to that awareness? It is Islam, it is Buddhism, it is Sanatana Dharma. It is simply awareness. Can you say it is male, female, a child, a boy? It is simply awareness. Can you say this awareness has got some dimension? You cannot add dimension. To understand this, it is beyond law, because there is no vyapti there. If you want vyapti, you need a mind. Means the law of association of idea is called vyapti in a common sense. Let us not go deep into any nyaya and try to understand vyapti. So, common understanding of vyapti is association of ideas, association of thoughts. What association can you bring to that pure awareness which is giving awareness to all other things? Just try to understand this pointer. Meditate on this pointer. When you try to understand this pure awareness, at least you will be away from the diseases of the body, away from the diseases of the mind, away from all the negativity and angularities of our ego or selfishness. Because we are that existence itself. So when you are trying to concentrate here on the pure awareness, what happens is we are trying to go beyond the law. Why beyond law? Because there no vyapti applies. Vyapti applies only when we have a mind. It is beyond the mind. That's why Swamiji says, when you think of that pure existence, it cannot be subjected to any law. Anything beyond the range of our mind and of our senses is not bound by the law of causation. He began with the idea of law of causation connected with karma. So Swamiji brings that word here. Anything beyond the range of our mind and of our senses is not bound by the law of causation, as there is no mental association of things in the region beyond the senses and no causation without association of ideas. When you think of that pure awareness, we can very well at least feel it intuitively. May not experience it, it takes a time or a particular sadhana, etc. But at least we can intuitively feel that awareness. Most tangible way or method or pointer is sushupti, in deep sleep. Every day we experience the deep sleep, and we rarely give an idea or try to understand that state. You see, the mind is completely switched off, not even in airplane mode. The mobile is completely switched off. Completely switched off. No program is working. But what exists which say, after I come to a conscious state and say that I slept wonderfully, I slept soundly. It was a very sound sleep. Who said it? Because there is something called pure awareness which was aware in spite of the mind, which adds value to the mind and says, identifying itself with that awareness and say, I slept. The mind slept. It was a mind sleeping, having a sound sleep, not the awareness. It's a wonderful pointer to our everyday experience. We experience it every day, but rarely we think of all those things. That is the wonderful pointer to that pure awareness. Second, from the time we came to know of ourselves in the sense of ego, maybe we started saying, it is my pen, my book, my chair. Maybe from the age of 3, approximately from the age of 3. Where till 2.5 years, it cannot assert, the child cannot assert itself saying it's mine. It takes some time to that ego to manifest in this body and mind complex. Maybe generally they say it starts at the age of 3. From that age till this say 50, 60, 40, 80, whatever may be our respective ages, this I never changed. The idea of I, not the I. The idea of I never changed. When I say I, the idea behind I is always common. Just think on that line. I never say considering or applying to this body. I said I am old. But I am old is different from I. The idea that carried all through your younger age, adulthood, vanaprastha, vruddhapya, the idea never changed. It remained the same. Even in dream, the idea remains same. Even in sushupti, either the sushupti of the boy of 10 years, sushupti of the experience of age of 80 is same. That I never changed. Is it not a wonderful pointer to know that I am pure awareness? That's what Vedanta discusses. We don't have time to read Vedanta. And it's in Sanskrit. Majority of the things are in Sanskrit. And whatever explained in English is confusing. Matrabhasha is, we have not understood. In the schools, we were not given much importance to. We were given importance once we crossed 10th. They say, you focus on PCMP. You want to write JEE, IIT, IIM, CAT. So we have to focus removing the language. Comprehension part, not much of importance. Anyway, that's a different story. Coming to our awareness part, here, second pointer I gave. Third one, if there is no pure awareness, let us say, connected to this I am speaking, if there was no pure awareness, just think, memory of age 10, my memory, our memory, at the age of 10, at the age of 20, at the age of 60, is integrated by a common awareness. Otherwise, you cannot say it is my memory. Who says it's my memory? Mind cannot say it is my memory. Mind only grasps the idea, but there should be a common awareness which integrates all the memory of 80 years of life, 60 years of life, 40 years of life. The awareness is the same, which we call the pure awareness. So, once it comes to, or perceived through the mind, it has to go through the law of causation. That is beyond the mind is beyond law of causation. So what do you mean by freedom? No mind. Na manaha. Manaha nasti tatra. Manaha nasti tatra. There mind does not exist. There is no mind at all. So that is freedom. But sitting here, we have to discuss about mind only, because we are trying to understand it through mind only. That's the problem. Many times we say, even the mind, when we start a Vedanta class, they say you have pure existence, pure consciousness. Even if I feel that I am pure consciousness, it is the mind which is saying it's pure consciousness. It is not the pure consciousness. So that's the problem with understanding Vedanta. Who is saying? It's your mind saying that you are consciousness. Because consciousness can know itself without the help of the mind. It's a little subtle to understand, but just hear and leave it. Consciousness can understand it. No sun is required to show that you are a sun. Sun is self-illuminating. Swayam Vedya. It is Swayam Vedya. If it needs an external object to show, then it is dependent. It becomes an object of understanding. The subject does not need any awareness through something external. So consciousness can know itself. So, in Vedanta, that's the problem. Now, we have to go to a place where there is no mind. But the problem is, using the words of Swamiji, that pure existence have been molded through or into Nama and Rupa. What is this universe? Nothing but Nama and Rupa, name and form. Everything which has got name and form has to follow law of causation, hence it is bound. Any thought, any idea. So, that pure being molded into name and form is called what we call universe. That's why Swamiji says, that being the case, you cannot say that there is a free will in this world, taking from the standpoint of law of causation. Desha kala nimitta or time, space and causation. We cannot have, so to say, a free will. Why we cannot have a free will? I will just read out Swamiji's words only. When you say will, what do you mean by will? It is means what we know is will. What cannot be known cannot be said it is a will. What we know, if you say a will, it is known by the mind. It's in the mind. So, will is what we know. And everything that we know is within this universe. So, everything in this universe is conditioned by time, space and causation. That which is under time, space and causation is bound. So, no, it's not free. So, will is never free. So, in that sense, free will means swayam ichcha. You don't ask that tomorrow if I want to get up at 4 o'clock, do we don't have the will to get up? No, we are not speaking. You can get up at tomorrow by a sankalpa. But what we are speaking, anything that mind perceives, hears, touch, feel and think is bound by time, space and causation. Hence, it is not a free will. Will, W caps, means that will not bound by mind is free will. So, in an ordinary sense of term, nobody can have a free will. W capital, G capital for God in W caps. Now, that's why Swamiji says, concludes this idea saying that from freedom it comes and becomes molded into this universe. From freedom it comes and becomes molded into this bondage, as though. We have to use this word as though. Swamiji does not use, but we have to add it. From freedom it comes and as though becomes molded into this bondage, and it gets out and goes back to freedom again. Considering he is explaining with respect to universe, taking the example of will. Now, this is the introduction that Swamiji gives before entering into the path of Karma Yoga for attaining freedom. Now, Swamiji says, the question has been raised long back in the Upanishad. Long back means you have to understand it is the Upanishad. What was the question? From whom this universe comes, and in whom it rests, and in whom it goes. This was the question raised in the Upanishad. So, Swamiji says, of course, this idea is reflected in Taittiriya Upanishad also, mainly. Swamiji has referred to Taittiriya also here, and of course, he brings Bhagavad Gita also. Swamiji says, the answer has been given that from freedom it comes, in bondage it is. Here also you have to add, as though. There is no bondage at all, as though. And in bondage it rests and goes back into that freedom again. Now, from freedom, even taking this idea, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains it to Arjuna. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharta avyaktani nidhananeva tatra ka paridevana. In the second chapter, I think, yes, in second chapter he says, before all these things, it was avyakta, unmanifest. You see this manifestation for a few years. Again afterwards, after your death, it becomes unmanifest. Why do you worry? Kill, start battle. Vyakta Madhya, only in the middle stage you see this Vyakta, Prapancha. Avyakta, earlier it was also Avyakta. After death also it goes to Avyakta. When two Avyaktas there, the middle one becomes Mithya, logically. Earlier also Avyakta, in future also Avyakta. If you are seeing a Vyakta, then this is Mithya. Because two Avyaktas, only in between you say, it is an illusion. That's why he says, it's an illusion, don't worry, you fight. Of course, giving a Vedantic explanation of Haka, very dangerous also. Badnekai Vedanta, in Kannada we say, that's the problem. So, Swamiji says, in freedom it rests, now it is in bondage, and again it goes back to freedom. So, if you take that idea, apply it to universe, what would be the outcome? Swamiji gives a wonderful idea here. We have to understand it in a very proper manner, in the sense that this idea should sink within. Until and though words and thought are very similar, we know that. But if we don't, this idea, if it does not sink in, then there is no way out of all troubles of this world. No way out. Swamiji says, just I read it here, the whole universe is only one speck of the infinite being. And all our laws, our bondages, our joys and our sorrows, our happiness and our expectations are only within this small universe. What do you mean by this universe? It is a small peck in that infinite expansion. I cannot use the word expansion. Expansion is wrong. Expansion means we feel something expanding. That which is everywhere, it cannot expand anywhere. So I cannot use the word expansion. I can use the only word infinity or infinite, ananta. Sanskrit is the best word to adopt, ananta. So, in that ananta, what do you mean by universe? Not just this bhumi, this earth. Whatever manifestation that you saw through Hubble telescope with thousands and lakhs of galaxies, Milky Way, sun pattern and all this Navagraha, Dashagraha, Graha Pidita, Graha Nivarana, whatever there is dosha, this dosha, that dosha, whatever dosha, we connected is a small speck in that infinite, Ananta. And what value can give this world? Even if you take 9 planets, Earth is not a bigger one. Saturn and Jupiter are much bigger than this Earth. And if you consider the galaxies, our galaxy is not Orion galaxy, it's not much bigger. There are hundreds, thousands, lakhs of galaxies bigger than this. If you say this sun is much bigger, there are much bigger suns than in our solar system. Much bigger suns in the other solar system. Considering all, it is a speck. If you say that is a speck, what about this word and so-called Mangalanathanandaji? No existence at all, respect to mind and body, which is applied to law of causation. That's why I told you, this idea should sink, not just here. So you just remember, for small petty things we had quarreled with our husband and wives. We may also quarrel with work. Swamis may also quarrel. They have got that freedom to quarrel. Don't say that we Swamis don't quarrel, but we forget that night itself, sleep nicely. Fortunately, till now there is no carryover. Next day, oh, chinta karta. So, when you say, Swamiji says, and all laws, what you call Rutam, etc., all your laws, bondages, joys, sorrows, happiness, expectations are only within that small speck. That's why I told you, you should make this idea sink. When you, suppose you don't feel, sometimes you don't feel like repeating the mantra, please sit there and don't come forward. Don't disturb others. If you come late, sit at the back. Don't come in the front. So many will be seeing you, not hearing me. So, when you are not, suppose you are traveling by a bus or a car and traveling. Nowadays you have got, earlier days when we had a landline, only option to talk to somebody, go home, go to office, call somebody. Here now the freedom of having an internet and a mobile, suppose you travel to ashrama, it takes 1 hour. 1 hour you will be gossiping with somebody without meaning. Majority, not all, majority. You have the freedom to call, even call a Swami. Is it not? Nalla irkingala, nalla bagunnara meeru, etlu unnaru, bhojam chesinara, em chesindre. So you have that freedom to take a mobile phone and call. Instead, take this idea. Feel that you are one with that consciousness which is infinite. Nothing, this word, this car, this whatever vehicle that we were, Ramakrishna mission for that matter. Then you feel this mind simply withdraws itself from everything. At least it's not an experience, but at least an intuition. And whatever heaviness that you had felt all through the day because of so many things at home, at work, etc., especially the professions who are caught up with IT, PT, GPT, it simply drops off. And you feel very light at that moment. Maybe only at that moment. But that's an indication that something beyond. That there is an indication of something beyond. Just think of that awareness. And this universe is a speck in that Ananta. In that, this body and mind has no value at all, except to realize God. Apart from that, no value. We have a value, because we have to go beyond the freedom. To that extent, we have value. Beyond that, there is no value. And whatever you have done, 3 PhD, CEC, 3 CA, CA is not only 1 CA, plus again they add that SAP and then international CA, so many they go on adding degrees to existing CAs. Whatever we have the highest degree, so many PhD, yeah, wonderful. But still, it's a speck. This word is a speck, and your PhD, draw one drop of water in that ocean. So everything is gone. What is that? I am pure existence. Even the mind which is saying, even this mind is not me. Beyond that. So that's why Swamiji says, you have to, even this happiness, sorrows, all misery, everything. In this universe, Swamiji says, this Holy One is now coming to, that's what Swamiji says. See, I explained, Swamiji puts in few words of his own. So you see how childish it is to expect a continuation of this universe, the creation of our minds, and to expect to go to heaven, which after all must mean only a repetition of this word that we know. Hence, Mimamsaka should drop it down. If Mimamsa had some value, then it should have continued after Vedanta. Why did it could not continue after the onslaught of Vedanta by Bhagavan Shankara? Because they expect the repetition of this word, which is just a speck in that infinity, Ananta. When there is no Anantate, Bhava of Ananta in the karma, then it has to drop down. When there is a Bhava of Ananta, in everything that you do, it has to take us to infinity, and this word has to dissolve. Universe has to dissolve. Mimamsakas try to repeat through the idea of going to Swarga, through the concept of Adrushta. It is not Adrushta Phala. You do karma today, you will have somewhere, we have to search where is that. Some part of the world in America, USA, karma will be stored up, which is called Nadrushtam, Adrushtam, not Kannada Adrushta, Nadrushtam, which cannot be seen. Once you die, all that Adrushta Phala will come, it carries you to the heaven. You do perform Homa, Agni will take you to all the gods and goddesses. Agni will be the agent of your carry. Well, finally, where do we land all these rituals? Be ourselves. That's why Swamiji says, anything, that's why when this idea sinks, then we lose value for all our mechanical activities. Every day, say, leading a life here, in the way so-called nam kaal ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ನಿಂತ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. What ಕಾಲ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಕಾಲ್ ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು? It is true to some practical extent. Just I am explaining under the idea of Ananta, taking Swamiji's idea. When we have this idea, then you give value to the idea of infinity, not through the idea of finitude. That's why Swamiji says, avoid all comfortable religion. If you want to go beyond, first avoid comfortable religion. What is comfortable religion? To think of repeating itself, the same repetition. Try to find meaning in all Swarga, Trishya, this life. Swamiji uses the word Trishna, thirst after life. So in Buddhism it is called by the word Tanha and Tissa. Buddhists use the same for Trishna, they use the word Tanha and Tissa. Swamiji says, there may be millions of kinds, not one or two. Please mind you should mind the words that Swamiji uses. He is exaggerating, but still it is true. Like a kavya. Kavya should have some exaggeration. Otherwise it cannot be kavya. So there may be millions of kinds of happiness. Millions, not one or two. Millions of kinds of happiness. And millions of beings. Millions of, Swamiji has used only once. I am adding to every word that is using. Millions of kinds of happiness, beings and laws and progress and causation, all acting outside the little universe that we know. And after all, the whole of this comprises but one section of our infinite nature. You may say millions of happiness, millions of miseries, millions of bungalows, 60, 40, 80, 40 house. One speck in that. In Jupiter and Saturn lost value when you say Ananta. What has become third and 60, 40 site and 100 by 40 and somebody has made? Let him make 1,000 crores. You enjoy. Some politician made 2,000. Let him enjoy. We say let him enjoy. Because we know we are Ananta. What can you do with those? Misunderstood. You have to pray. Poor fellow, let him come after me. Let him bless us. So, whatever you say, millions of happiness in this world, remember, it's a speck of our true nature. And one thing we have to understand here before entering, one important point, which I forgot to mention. I didn't thought, but it should be remembered always. When you say, he began with law of causation, freedom is beyond law of causation. Beyond of law of causation is that pure existence which we call Brahman or God. And the fourth point that I have to remember is, I am not different from God. I am that. Tattvamasi Shvetaketo, I am Atma, Brahma, Pragnanam Brahma. I am that. You should remember. I may not understand this. It is not agreeable to the present mental condition. No problem, don't worry. Let us not worry. You cannot deny the truth. Because of our accepting or not accepting, we cannot deny the truth. Truth, Swamiji says in Jnana Yoga, truth must pay homage. Society must pay homage to truth, or it must die. Earlier the better. Swamiji says in Jnana Yoga. This society has to pay homage to truth. If it does not pay homage to truth, slowly this society will die. A new society will rise. Earlier the better. Whatever corruption, whatever etc., XYZ you say and God, this will not long last. Because finally truth, Satya, our principle, national principle is also that. That's why truth alone triumphs. That is the truth. That you cannot separate from pure existence, which is Brahman or God. How can you deny the fact? Mind may deny, but the truth cannot be denied. So, these four things you have to understand when we enter this idea of freedom. You just remember in spite of all struggles, suppose as a sadhaka, especially when we take a course of bhakti, jnana is also one part and bhakti. So many people may do for long 30 years, 40 years, still they may not get a light. Nothing to worry. What is to worry? Whatever sadhana practice we say, it is a speck in that universe. Chalo yaar, kya hai? Kal ya aaj karenge. So it is just a speck. We have to remember this idea. Nothing to worry. We cannot deny the truth. The truth is truth always. Satyameva jagate na anratam. Upanishad word. Satyameva jagate na anratam. Anrata is, I am body and mind bound by law of causation. Satyam, I am Atma, Brahma, Pragnanam, Brahma, Tattvamasi, Shvetaketo. You cannot deny it. How can you deny? Impossible. That's why I forgot to mention that point earlier. This we have to remember. Before proceeding, we have to remember that. So, now Swamiji says, he has given an introduction taking Vedanta. Now he has to come to Karma Yoga now. He takes one bridge to come to Karma Yoga. Swamiji says, now I want freedom. How to get freedom? You have to transcend the limitations of this universe. What is this universe? Mind. Bas. You have to, as Christian says, peace that passeth all understanding. Peace that passeth all understanding is, which cannot be known through the mind, that passeth all understanding. It's a peace which cannot be measured by mind. It's beyond that. That's a passeth all understanding. Now, and the real religion begins. You have understood the universe. He has explained what this universe means. So Swamiji says, real religion begins where this little universe ends. If you understand this universe as explained by Swamiji earlier, then religion begins. Real religion begins where this little universe ends. We will have no Trishna, Tanna, Tissa. We will not have. It passeth all understanding, a peace that passeth all understanding. In Jnana Yoga, where I think in the very first chapter, probably in the necessity of first chapter in Jnana Yoga is the necessity of religion. I think mostly in that Swamiji explains what is this universe. He has given one explanation here. There he gives a different explanation. Of course, if you had read Jnana Yoga, it seems that we are going to Jnana Yoga only. If you remember Swamiji's Jnana Yoga, in further 1 or 2 pages also, some of the ideas just reflects here, same of that. Of course, he simply goes to, he has got the freedom to move anywhere because he is adhikari. For us, it gets confused if you are not trained to read Swamiji. So there, Swamiji tries to explain this universe. What is this universe? There it says, the infinite trying to express itself through finite is called this universe. You have to understand it. In absolute and its manifestation, in the chapter, the absolute and its manifestation. There's one chapter in Jnana Yoga. There, how does he explain the universe? He says, the Brahman seen through Deshakala Nimitta is universe. In necessity of religion, Swamiji, to introduce, he says, the infinite tries to manifest itself through finite. Means, the Ananta wants to manifest itself. Then it fails. Then Swami says, there begins renunciation. When you understand that you cannot express what you are through this body and mind, then you say enough of this word and you withdraw the mind. That is called renunciation. When the infinite finds that it cannot manifest or express itself through this universe, it withdraws. Then renunciation begins. Swamiji says. So, the idea, so you can see the similarity of the idea. When you know the limitation of this universe, what happens? The real religion begins where this little universe ends. If religion has to begin, that's why if you see so many Babas and saying, and say tomorrow it will happen like you, day after tomorrow, in that seminar also that he asked me, so many will proclaim, and I asked, did Ramakrishna Swami say proclaim? No. So, Vedanta monks will never proclaim what will happen tomorrow, you do parihara, you whatever you want, you do. But what we are speaking of freedom now. When you are seeking of freedom, we don't connect much value to this universe in the sense of Trishna, Tanna and Tissa. Where does the service, etc. comes? Finding itself as the expression of that infinity. That's all. No other value for this universe. That's why, until we give up the thirst after life, the strong attachment to this our transient conditioned existence, we have no hope of catching even a glimpse of that infinite freedom beyond. Don't have any hope. Swami, we have so many stress. Read this sentence. Swami, so many troubles. Read this sentence. Swami, we are not progressing in sadhana. Read this sentence. Any problem you quote, read this sentence. Until we give up this thirst after life, the strong attachment to this transient conditioned existence. Transient conditioned existence means considering this body conditioned by my mind, because law of causation is here. We have no hope of catching even a glimpse of the infinite freedom beyond. That's why Swamiji says, giving up this life, limited universe, etc., etc. Finally, he concludes with the idea, the only way to come out of bondage is to go beyond the limitations of law, to go beyond causation. Now, he has concluded this idea completely. Now, what is the way out? Swamiji is asking this question. He says, of course, standard answer begins now. Once upon a time, our all stories begins like this. Once upon a time, a king ruled the earth, and that king had 4 children. In the same way, Swamiji begins the standard answer. What is the answer? What's the way out? There are 2 ways. One is Neti Neti Marga. Second one is Iti Iti Marga. What do you mean by Neti Neti Marga? You deny. It is the negative way. And Swamiji says negative way is the most difficult. So, and you see, it is very rare on this earth to find men practicing really through negative. Negative means na iti na. This you deny anything of this word, mityatva, and then you hold on to only the satyatva through viveka, discrimination. That is neti neti marga. Then the second way is, what is the second way? The vast majority of mankind, iti, what Swamiji gives, what is iti? Is a positive way. You see the explanation of Swamiji here. Try to follow the words that Swamiji uses. The vast majority of mankind choose the positive way. What do you mean by positive way? The way through the word. Okay. Now you observe. Making use of all the bondages. Making use of all the bondages themselves to break those very bondages. I'm focusing you, bringing your mind to the words. At present, we have the idea that we are bound, is it not? So take that idea, which leads to idea of freedom. Making use of all the bondages themselves to break those very bondages. This is also a kind of giving up. Breaking bondages, taking in the health of the bondages is also a one kind of giving up. In what sense? Nivedita says, to hold, this has to, in introduction to complete verse of Swami Vivekananda. To labor is to pray, she says. Suppose you are laboring, you are a laborer on the street, he is bringing a cart load of mud, a cart load of so many luggages. To labor is nothing but to pray to that infinite, because awareness is there everywhere. Where do you deny that awareness? I am that. You cannot deny it. But because having a consciousness of this body and mind, I am bound and have a profession as a labor. You work. But what is it? Has no way to limit your infiniteness. So be a laborer. But laboring is nothing but praying. To labor is to pray. Take all the bondages to break the bondages. Of course, one famous example of Swamiji, not directly connected, but indirectly connected. Just because I remember, I just want to share. You might have heard n number of times from Harshanji. It is his story. Generally, when you start practicing religion, we have so many problems. When you hear theory, in the sense of understanding, it's good. But when you start practicing, and that too not convinced with certain ideas, we fall into confusions. So, when he was a young boy, Harshanji was a young boy, studying in a college, used to come to ashrama. But his Purva ashrama parents were not happy Harshanji coming to ashrama. So what he used to do, whenever he supposed to come here, he used to tell a lie at home that he is visiting a friend's house for study, etc. Something he used to tell lie. If he says ashrama, they will not allow him. So he used to tell a lie. I am going to etc. But he used to come here. But generally, for a truthful person, it will be a problem. Then one day he asked, that time Swami Tyagishanji was here as the Adhyaksha, before Swami Yatishwaranji. So he one day openly asked this question to Tyagishanji, Maharaj, I have a big problem, a big doubt. What is your doubt? Maharaj, I am coming to ashrama, that's good. But coming to ashrama, I am telling a lie at home. Sullu, Anratam. But I am coming here. So, my conscience does not permit me to follow a conscience. If I say truth, they will not allow me to come to ashrama. So, then he had decided he will join ashrama and be a monk. And how can I lead this spiritual life? So, how to solve this practical problem? I think Harshanji has told this n number of times. Tyagishanji made a wonderful comment. He gave a wonderful message. The first time I heard it struck me. It went directly into me, inside me. A lie, L-I-E, a lie which leads to light is not a lie. A lie which leads to light is not a lie. So, here, taking the help of bondages, you break the bondages. Now, giving an example of taking this example only. What is his mind? Limited by time, space and conversation. Is it not? Mind is in universe. That is which is in universe follows the law of causation, or follows is limited by time, space and causation. So taking this help of this mind which is already under law, how can you go beyond law? I think you have understood the question. Ilya, this mind is bound. How can you expect this bound mind to lead you to freedom? That's why you have to understand Karma Yoga. That's why Swami says you need something, some base. Actually, that's why if you can make this mind pure, I will drop this, I will conclude with this idea, stop it here, then we will continue further later on. It's time up now. You, though the mind is bound, but giving the idea of Ananta to the mind, it tries to expand. Mind. When the mind becomes pure, with that expansion, then what does Sri Ramakrishna say? Shuddha Atma and Shuddha Manas are one and the same. Sri Ramakrishna says in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So Thakur is wonderful. Shuddha Manas and Shuddha Atma are one and the same. How it has happened? By bringing the idea of Ananta to the Santa mind. It tries to expand and expand. In the process of that expansion, it becomes purer and purer and purer. The more pure it becomes, the more reflections it will have of the Atman inside. And it gets an intuition, and the idea of Tanna Trishna drops to this body and mind. And it is infinite, Ananta, loses all the value for a universe. So how to carry on that idea with Karma Yoga is the question that will be solved by Swamiji in the next class. Till then, work with ignorance. So next Sunday, I will be in Belgaum. So next Sunday, we won't be having this Karma Yoga. 11th, I have to conclude their lecture. By the time I come here, Bangalore, it will be 10 or 11 p.m. So next Sunday, we will not have any lecture by me on Karma Yoga. some Swamis of Basungudi Mutt will be delivering lecture. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.